himself again. Downing, Best, and there it is! George Best!
Welcome back to our special tribute programme to George Best, one of the finest players ever to grate this famous stadium. And these are live pictures outside Old Trafford at the moment. And the tributes have been flying in since it was announced this afternoon, and so many people have come down, some just driving past to have a look at the scenes as well, and not just Manchester United fans either, football fans from all over the Northwest been coming and paying tribute to George Best, who passed away earlier today. We've got a lot more tributes to come, and a chance for you to pay your tribute as well in this special programme till 7:30. We've heard from the manager and Sir Bobby Charlton. Here's United's Chief Executive, David Gill.
It was a day that over the past few weeks became increasingly more inevitable, but we continue to hope and pray that the worst wouldn't happen. Today, however, those fears were confirmed when George Best passed away at 12:55 p.m. in the Cromwell Hospital in London, following a brave and inspiring battle against illness. On behalf of the directors, management, players, staff and supporters of Manchester United Football Club, I extend my sincerest sympathies to George Best's family and friends, and what is an enormously distressing time. George Best holds a totally unique place in the history of football, and in particular his beloved Manchester United. He was, without any doubt, one of the finest players the United Kingdom has ever produced, and in the opinion of many observers, the greatest of them all. Despite the inevitability of George's plight, there's still a huge feeling of shock and disbelief at Old Trafford, in Manchester, Belfast and beyond. It remains difficult to absorb what has happened. George Best passing away will be mourned around the world, for he is one of the great sporting figures of his generation. Black armbands will be worn and a minute's silence observed at all Premiership matches over the weekend, and the tribute will be repeated at our Carling Cup fixture against West Bromwich Albion next Wednesday. Tributes can be recorded on the club's website, and a book of condolence which will be opened at Old Trafford tomorrow at 10 a.m. And I'd just like to say, you know, from a personal perspective, you know, a lot of fans from my generation, you know, George Best was the reason I started supporting Manchester United. You know, he was a great player. I had the good fortune to meet him since joining the club in 1997 on 2 or 3 occasions, and really sort of warmed to him and had a great sort of time with him, talking about stories and sort of his time at the club. So from a personal perspective, it's a very sad day.
And just from Manchester United's perspective, wherever you travel in the world, he is one of the first names ever mentioned and associated with this football club, and always will be.
That's right. I mean, the whole part of the history and heritage of Manchester United goes back to that great team in the 60s with George, Bobby and Dennis and all the other great players in that era, you know, after the Munich disaster. You know, and that's exactly right, Steve. He was very much remembered, or will be remembered, as a great player, a bubbly character, one of the characters in the game, fantastic skills. And I was just actually speaking to Alex this morning, you know, at a regular meeting with him, and you know, recounting some of his memories of him, and it's absolutely fantastic.
And it's important at times like this, people remember those memories, and memories etched into United's history.
I think that's right. I mean, I don't know George that well, clearly, but I'm sure he would like that, and he said the other day that he should be remembered for his football, and his football was sparkling, and just imagine what he would have done, you know, in this era. He would have been absolutely fantastic as he was in that era, and I think that's very important. And unfortunately, in the 60s, 70s, there wasn't much media coverage, but the odd bits we have of George demonstrates what a brilliant player he was, the great goals he scored, you know, the great character he was, and I think that's what everyone associated with the club will remember him for.
And just finally, when people talk about playing the Manchester United way, the entertaining way, that was a lot down to George Best himself as well, wasn't it?
Very much so. You know, that's exactly right. You know, taking it on, winning in style, winning, you know, with a bit of verve, a bit of sort of creativity, and exactly that's what we've always lived for and will continue to live for. And it's players like George Best that dictate and sort of determine that's how we've got to play as we move forward into the next era of our development.
That's the United Chief Executive David Gill talking to me a little bit earlier on today. It's interesting to hear the reason why David Gill became a Manchester United fan was because of George Best, and he's certainly not in a minority there, is he?
I want you to tell the story about your family.
Yeah, my grandmother.
Seriously?
No, it was my late grandmother, my father's mother, who wasn't at all interested in football like the rest of the family. But I can remember saying, she remember saying to me she was a massive Manchester United fan. And I said, "But you don't like football, Grant?" She said, "Georgie Best." And there was a big picture in the kitchen as well. Georgie Best.
Fantastic.
Absolute George Best nuts. And as I say, David Gill there saying that Not a minority.
Well,
So many people
no.
around the world are like that,
Well,
aren't they?
I look at George is going to have his funeral in Belfast next Friday. George came across the dividing line in the north of Ireland. He's got people together. There'll be people at that funeral next week that probably have never spoke to each other. The whole of Belfast will be out for that funeral, both sides. And that's the way it should be all the time, in actual fact. It's just a pity that it's taken the death of George probably to get them together. But it's going to be like that in Belfast next Friday.
We're 42 years on from the first time he played for this club, but in another 42 years, he will still be one of the very first names associated with this football club, won't he?
Of course you will, Stevie. It's just, I mean, that's why it is today. That's why I suppose that all the supporters of Manchester United in the 60s saw him play, their sons have been told about him and might have seen him, but the grandchildren of those people have been handed down. It's all been handed down right along the line, and these people are out there tonight.
You know, when you say things like that, my granddaughter, she's 6 years of age, she came home from school yesterday. Well, she came in to see me for some odd reason, I don't know what. And the first thing she said to me, she says, "Grandad, George Best's got 24 hours to live." Now, she's obviously heard that at school, and she's at school with, obviously, the teachers might have taught, but she's at school with a load of kids, but obviously the parents were talking about it. As Alex says, I mean, him and I can walk down here, there'll be kids here at Old Trafford that won't know us from Adam, but the dads or somebody will come up and ask for an autograph. Exactly. They'll not know who you are, but you mentioned George Best to them, they know exactly who George Best is.
And again, these are great pictures because, Paddy, you told me so many times over the last 10, 11 years, he was the very first footballing celebrity, wasn't he? The person that took football from the back page to the front page.
Well, we remember, you look at the 60s, take the 60s, who were the great people that lived in the 60s? There was George Best, there was John Kennedy, President of America, there was the Beatles, there was Nelson Mandela, there was Martin Luther King. All these names together are the 60s for me, and probably the 60s for people of my age, but to put George in the same category of some of the names that we've mentioned is an incredible thing.
But important fact that so many people have said today, Alex, is how great a footballer he was, but equally how great a person he was. And there was no side to him because of that great footballer.
There was no side. He was just a lovely lad. You know, wherever we went, he was part of us. I mean, he had this celebrity status, Paddy, didn't he? I mean, everybody. I mean,
I don't think he realised that. It didn't mean a damn thing.
I mean, we pull up, say, at Newcastle for a game, and there was. I mean, there'd be thousands of young kids lining up, all to see him, not us. But he
I'm not too sure about you.
I don't know about you. Is it your blue eyes? Or no, anyway. But that's
not laughing. That's the way it should be as well.
That's what it was all about, and they all come to see George. But he was with us. He was with us. Lad, no matter where we did, when we played golf.
Do you know, this is the hypocrisy of life and the hypocrisy of the media that live in this country. Over the last 10, 20 years, they've slaughtered George. Anything that's been happening, whether it was true or not, George has been headlines and lots of things, whether it's nice or not, well, not particularly nice according to the press. Now that he's dead, oh, he's the greatest, he's lovely and all. That's the hypocrisy of people somewhere along the road.
We're talking about his football, Paddy, aren't we?
We're talking about the way he's football. But Alex, I mean, I think George is one of those people, you say it a million times, when somebody dies, everybody says something nice about him. There's a lot of people out there that are dead that I wouldn't give the time of day to. Even now that they're dead, they don't mean a damn thing. And I wouldn't say a nice thing about them, because if they're not nice when they're alive, they're not nice when they're dead. George you can speak highly about, even when he's dead, because he was one of the greatest and nicest lads you could ever wish to meet. And George only ever damaged one person in his life, himself. He never hurt anybody.
Okay. Plenty of tributes to get through between now and 7:30. Do share yours with us as well. Let's hear now from Alex and Paddy's former teammate, Dennis Law.
Yourself, you've been here many days. He's been, you know, drastically ill, hasn't he? And it was just a matter of when it was going to happen rather than if. So it's a sad day. I've lost a great friend. He's one of the greatest players that the game has ever seen. But I've usually said this.
Yeah, George obviously knew how popular he was. He couldn't have failed to realise. But how do you think he would have taken the kind of response there's been today to his passing?
He would have thought it was absolutely magnificent, the amount of people. And as his son said, not only the media, the fans as well, and you can see all the flowers and, you know, that they've left here. That was the fans. He was extremely well respected in the football world, and of course in the world itself regarding playing football. Excellent player.
I bet you've had a few tears in private in there, haven't you?
We did. It was very sad around the bed prior to it. You know, it was something like 2 or 3 hours. You know, we were sat there, so it was very sad. And every now and then we expected, you know, it to happen then, and a lot of tears. But he kept fighting and fighting, and you just feel, you know, he'd go on forever. But unfortunately, he didn't.
That's Dennis Law, and this is live outside Old Trafford at the moment, and as you can see, it really has become a focal point for United fans' grief, and as I say, not just United fans, football fans in general, predominantly Reds, of course, in and around Old Trafford. So many memories, so many people saying out there, it's just a privilege to have met him, to have seen him play, but it really is a spectacular scene out there, and it does tell you everything about George Best, the person. In fact, we can go live now to the forecourt at Old Trafford, and Andy Dickman. Andy.
Thanks very much indeed, Steve. Well, since the news broke earlier on this afternoon that George has passed away, Old Trafford, understandably, has become the focal point. Hundreds upon hundreds of fans have been coming here to pay their own special tribute. I'm joined now by a couple who have made the journey here after work. Your words about George Best, he was quite simply the best, wasn't he?
Well, he's a football legend that will be respected, not only in England at Manchester United, but worldwide. It's just a sad day for everyone involved. We've just come here to pay our own little tribute to him. Been listening to the news all morning and for the past week, so obviously the sad news came today, so just thought we'd come down here and grieve with the rest of the mourners that are here today.
Plenty of Manchester United shirts, as you would expect, but also shirts from fans of other clubs as well, and that just shows the impact that George had on football as a whole, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does indeed. We've seen a few Manchester City shirts especially down here. It's just a legend that he was. He was generally respected between all footballers, football fans in general, and, you know, just the media as well respected him.
And of course, there's plenty of people here that never even had the chance to see George play as well, and that sums up the impact that he's had down the years as well.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, me and Brett are only 22, but, you know, I'm not actually a Man United fan, but I just respect him for the fact, you know, everyone said he was the fifth Beatle. He just had it all. He had the cool, he had the women, he had everything. Not just one of the best players ever, but, you know, one of the best sort of, like you say, he's a legend. He had it all.
And the fact it's decades since he hung up his boots with Manchester United. Fans have still carried on talking about him, and fans will carry on talking about him for many years to come still.
Oh, without a doubt. You know, he's scored some of the greatest goals ever. He's been involved in some achievements. He's not something that's just going to go away. He just live on in the memory of everyone for a long, long time.
OK, thanks very much indeed, guys. Well, plenty of tributes still being paid here at Old Trafford, and that will continue for many hours to come tonight and over the coming days. Back to the studio.
Andy, thank you. And just what we were talking about there, chaps, a 22-year-old who's not a United fan, and he's come down to pay a tribute to George Best.
That just shows you, Steve, doesn't it? I mean
these scenes are very emotional, but they just say everything about the person that's
I think
gone
it's the
today.
ability, Steve. When you've got the ability, the likes of players like George Best have, you respect it.
I think a lot of people met him as well, Pat, and he was such a nice guy with it as well. I think that's the overriding theme of today.
I think there was a little bit of devilment is there as well, when the life he led, people would admire him for it and think, I wish it was me, and all that sort of thing. And that comes into it, and I mean, they've always, I think people always have got great respect for a lovable rogue. You know, for what goes on and off the pitch. People love that, and I think that's why he's certainly respected by football fans anyway.
I mean, this is great. I mean, I was down there when I parked the car and saw that. It was unbelievable, Pat, wasn't it? You know, the things that
the different clubs, which I think's nice, that respect for players. Probably it'll change after a period of time, but it's just for that moment to great respect for.
And that's a signed photograph he's signed there. That's unbelievable for that to be there.
Well, that's coming through your mind straight away. That'll be worth a few quid. That.
No, I'm just wondering why, you know, someone to put that there, because that is his signature.
Yeah,
that is his signature.
We know his signature quite well, don't we?
Yeah.
And that's a poignant picture too.
That's another poignant picture. I think that's that is the history of Manchester United. That is a lot of history to Manchester United.
Absolutely.
That's a lot of history of why the reason this club's what it is.
Exactly.
OK, let's get to some of your tributes as well. Remember, you can call us tonight, 0845 602 6899. You can text us and email us as well. If you text tonight, all the proceeds go to charity. John is in the Isle of Man to speak to us. Hi, John.
Hi, good evening. It's a very, very sad night for for George and his family, and my deepest condolences to his family and to all us Manchester United fans. I lived in Manchester, and I was very fortunate to meet him a couple of times in Manchester. And he came over to the Isle of Man, and I was working in hotels then. And he came over for a long weekend, and he gave a speech, and I just sort of like that stuck with me. And also like all the matches he played in, you know, for United and for Northern Ireland. You know, I'd just like to say that, you know, I've got very, very good memories. And
John, I think you were fortunate that probably met George. Obviously, you had conversations with him.
Yeah.
And you're probably one that would know what a nice lad he was.
Yeah. And he stayed in the hotels, and he was a really nice guy. And he was in the gym, working out and just drinking water. And, you know, the impression that he left me, you know, I was just so lucky to meet him, and I met him in Manchester, and then, as I say, in the Isle of Man, and their memories are will never go away. And the matches, the goals that he scored, you know, I used to go and stand in the old scoreboard end when he played, and I used to pay less than £1.
It wouldn't be much more than 3 or 4 shillings then.
3 or 4 shillings, 4 and 6.
Yeah.
And I used to pay that, and you could go there on the train, go in, buy a programme, and get home for less than £1. You know, and nowadays, you're never going to get a player like him ever in this world.
Absolutely, John. Alex, the point is that everybody, John's got his story there about a speech in the Isle of Man. Everyone has a story and a memory of George, don't they?
Well, you know, I mean, I've got to say, Steve, I mean, we've never seen George a lot over the last few years because he's probably the only one, apart from Shea Brennan, who went to Ireland. We've all stayed around Manchester. Yeah. He's moved to London. Yeah. And the last time I saw him was last May. We was at a dinner at Michael Parkinson's pub down in Windsor, and he turned up, George, out of the blue. Michael Parkinson got in there, and he drank water all night, and he looked fantastic. And do you know what? I'm so glad that was the last time I saw him.
Yeah,
for the simple reason that what we've seen in the papers, the pictures, you know, I don't want to remember him like that. I want to remember George as I last saw him.
And the funny thing about it, Noel Cantwell was there as well, wasn't he?
Noel Cantwell was there as well, and that's, you know, it's amazing.
Absolutely. OK, John, thank you for that. David in Oxford next. Hi, David.
Hello there.
Go on, David.
Just like to speak to Paddy and Alex. I have met them both, real gentlemen. Sorry it's a sad occasion. I was fortunate enough to see George make his debut against West Brom and followed his career. So many memories, and just wanted to say what entertainment he gave me, and absolutely magic.
That's very nice, David, and I think we all think the same. I'm just looking at the pictures now we have here of George's dad, who's one of the nicest men you could wish to meet as well. I mean, I know him so well.
Yeah.
I've seen probably more of him than I saw of George over the last maybe 2 or 3 years. Nice man, little Dickie.
Keep your text messages coming as well. Peter and Ryan Case says, legends of legends, George, may you rest in peace. Thank you for all the memories. Farewell, my hero. Keep those coming in as well. So many tributes tonight. We are here for that as well. George, quite simply by the fans, will never, ever be forgotten. Let's hear some more tributes now.
He was one of the all-time greats of this place that we have got here. And only for Sir Matt Busby's vision of seeing a great player, and Bob Bishop's finding him over in Belfast, we'll never have had a great player like George Best. And for Pele to turn around and say he's actually the greatest player he'd ever seen, what more can you say about the guy?
It's been a dreadful day. I know it's we've been expected for some time. It's very difficult to come to terms with. Yeah.
And this is a fitting tribute to his memory today, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a lovely tribute. Everything, you know. There's I noticed down there's a couple of Tottenham scarves and City scarves, and I think everybody's united. It's in grief at such a sad time.
Yeah, he was a great legend, and can't believe he's gone.
he's been one of my heroes for such a long time, and I just don't know what to say really, but he was truly one of the best.
This response, though, we've seen tonight, there's plenty of Manchester United shirts, plenty of shirts from other clubs as well, just shows how well respected he was throughout football.
Oh, he was great respected. He was obviously one of the most loved players that's ever been seen, and he'll never be replaced.
I think he had what you'd call a crossover appeal. He was a legend, you know, simple as that. I've seen shit of Manchester City shirts, I've seen Sunderland shirts, Norwich shirts, you know, all sorts. So it just goes to show that he was appreciated all over the world of football.
He crossed those barriers. I think he was just a great player. Name said it all, best.
It's breaking, and in a great position to break too. This looks bad. What a great goal, George Best, and referee John Gill clapping his hands together and saying well done too.
The Carling Cup continues this week on Setanta Sports. On Tuesday, Giant Killers Doncaster.
Tommy Taylor's header. George Best. George Best has to turn.
Welcome back to this special Manchester United tribute programme for George Best, who unfortunately today lost his final battle. These are the live pictures here outside of Old Trafford. United fans grieving together, and football fans too, and a tremendous response from the world of football and, of course, United fans. So many people's hero. Tributes to come, but if you were to pick a performance from George's 465 appearances for the Reds, there's one that made the Belfast boy a household name. The Northern Irishman was outstanding against Benfica, the team of the moment at the time, in the quarter-finals of the European Cup. The year was 1966. The venue was the Stadium of Light in Lisbon, and afterwards George was dubbed El Beetle.
Benfica kicked off with Eusebio, reckoned Europe's best player, in evidence, though Manchester United's defence was not to be caught napping. Dennis Law and the rest of Matt Busby's men had only one thought: attack. After 7 minutes, the ball went to George Best. Goal! A shock that to the all-conquering Benfica, unbeaten on this ground for years. But there has to be a start for everything. Best had the ball again. Another goal. Bobby Charlton started another attack. Heard to Connelly. Goal number 3. At half-time, United 3, Benfica 0. And being Manchester United, they didn't let up. Champion teams don't make that mistake. Benfica were lucky here. As the Portuguese 11 couldn't score themselves, Shea Brennan put one through his own goal. After an unsuccessful Benfica shot, Bobby Charlton was prominent again. A pass found Crerand. United's 4th goal. It was only right that Bobby Charlton should get one himself. Goal number 5. United are in the semi-finals of the European Cup.
Great footage from 1966. Back United came. George was dubbed the El Beetle with the hat as well. There's rare footage because it was a Paddy Crerand goal on there as well. What are your memories of that night, Pat?
Well, the memories of that night, I'll tell you what my memories are. In actual fact, before the game, we're in the dressing room, and Eusebio won the European Player of the Year award. And the game was kicking off about 10:30, something ludicrous like that. And it was held up for about 15 minutes. We had to wait in the dressing room while this presentation was being made to Eusebio. Whether Matt didn't want us to go onto the pitch, they've probably done it because get all the crowd at it. Whether Matt didn't want us to go onto the pitch, I don't know. And we're in there bugging about, and I've hit this ball, and there's a big mirror at the back, and clatter, smashed the lot. The mirror, and everybody's looked at me. I didn't know what to say to him. I guess it's a mirror's a mirror. When you break a mirror, you break a bloody mirror. What difference does it make?
Sure you didn't look in it? It was the ball, was it?
No, I'm going to be writing to you. No, but as I said, I remember Matt saying, keep it tight, lads, just quiet in the crowd for 20 minutes. We were 3 up after 20 minutes. So we didn't always believe what Matt said.
I know he was focal point there, but did you notice a difference in football people in general after that, when he was dubbed the fifth Beatle and so on, after that performance?
Publicity go, I think, and Alex would probably certainly know as well, when was football ever on the front page, Alex? When
only when George
appeared.
When he appeared.
And then people say, well, why did Sir Matt not do this, and why? He didn't recognise it either. All of a sudden you've got somebody that's like one of the Beatles, of course, getting all that publicity. I don't think poor George understood it either.
But I mean, you got to say, Pat, Matt really looked after him.
He tried his best, of course he did. Done everything for him.
And I think you've got to say that the lad did respect him so much.
Oh, without doubt.
It was a
father-son
relationship.
Of course it was.
Absolutely brilliant.
Because at the time, that night, that performance by George, it was the talk of football. I mean, you were at Millwall at the time.
That's right. I was at Millwall because I think they came and played Chelsea, didn't they? Was it
United? Yeah, come and play Chelsea next game.
You stayed over in London, or you stayed over
in Benfica. Yeah,
that's right. After the Benfica game, and played Chelsea, because the London, and as it was in those days, don't forget the London press was completely different to the Northern press, and you know, it was biased. But I mean, it was all over London papers. George Best, they'll beat. Incredible.
Fantastic. Okay. Now, whilst the 1968 European Cup final, of course, remains one of the most famous nights in United history, the 7th of February 1970 will always be remembered as the day George Best produced one of his most remarkable performances. The Reds travelled to Northampton for an FA Cup tie that afternoon, with the home side powerless to prevent George Best notching 6 goals in an 8-2 victory.
Through, Best is there, and Best! Now ranked more for Northampton. Well cut out by Sadler. Perrand, and George Best through, that run into his path beautifully. Book is committed and it's a goal! Charlton, through to Kidd. Best is in the middle and onside. Morgan is coming to bring support. Kidd. Best, his hat-trick. No, now! And Kidd. Best waiting hopefully in the middle again. Cut out by Brooks, but straight back to Kidd. Best! It's in! Burns quickly in the game. And putting Best through, and here goes Best. It must be his 5th, surely. Yes, he's rolled it in! This incredible player. Edwards coming to challenge Felton. Kiernan and Perrand in again to Best. Here he goes! And George Best sets a club scoring record.
1970, another record for George Best. He didn't have much to do that day than just stand and admire from the other end.
It took the limelight off me, Steve. I saved a penalty.
But it was no score.
We edited that out, I'm sorry.
But what do you notice about that? Did you see what number he had on his back there?
I never noticed.
Go on, you tell me.
Was it not number 7?
Number 11.
I believe he played number 7.
That's right. And that's, I mean, it's different today, isn't it? You know, you've got a squad name, squad number. You know.
Only a goalkeeper would recognise that, isn't it?
Well,
as I say, he didn't really have much else to do that day, did you? Save the penalty and just admire an absolutely stunning personal performance.
Look at that pitch. That was a cricket pitch, would you believe, Steve? That was a cricket pitch. And they built stands, didn't they?
Yeah.
You know, like to accommodate. Otherwise, I mean, it would have been a full. What's that? But they're unbelievable, the crowd.
Well, with George playing and all that sort of thing.
But
and let's point out as well, he hadn't been playing prior to this match.
6 weeks. He had a 6-week suspension. I don't know what he got sent off or why he got 6 weeks. I can't remember. Did he throw mud at somebody or whatever?
No, was that when he got sent off against City in a league?
Whatever it was.
That was later.
But he got a 6 weeks, didn't he?
Yeah.
And he came back, and we were doing so well, but whether he should have been playing or not was another, you know, like because you played him. And he said, well, 6 goals.
Does that not just sum up George, Pat, that no one had spoken about him for 6 weeks, he hadn't been playing? He came back with that.
I don't think George had a nerve in his body.
Really?
You know, Alex will tell you, before a game, you're a bit nervous, aren't you? You're always a bit...
Yeah, but we never saw him do it. Well, I mean,
he never was he?
No, but...
What was he like in the dressing room?
Well, what we did, but the thing is...
Laugh,
Steve.
Bubbly.
Steve, we used to have steak, didn't we?
Yeah.
Pre-match meal.
Yeah.
Matt would give his team talk, blah, blah, blah. We'd come back to here, say, we'd have it in the grill room as it was then, and finish by 2 o'clock, and you go and sort your tickets out for you know, you leave and whatever. And some players would go in the dressing room at 2:10 and read the newspaper, and some would get ready at 2:30. I would always get ready at 2:30.
Me as well.
You know, because I knew that by 3 o'clock I'm ready to go out. Yeah. George wasn't in there. He'd come in at 2:45.
3.
And he'd just walk in, and he'd just take his clothes off, put his kit on, do a nice little bow. And I watched him do it. He put a nice little bow, and he didn't, like we did, we tied them round and round our ankles. He just put a nice little bow and said, right, come on, let's go.
Brilliant.
Didn't have a nerve in his body.
Am I right? True, isn't it?
Oh, dear me.
Fantastic memories. Lots more to come on this special tribute to an absolute legend.
Law lifting himself again, Downing!
Welcome back to this special MUTV tribute show for George Best. These are the live scenes outside Old Trafford. It's getting even busier as people finish work and finish shift work on a Friday evening. They are so keen to come down and grieve together, the Manchester United fans and football fans in general outside Old Trafford, and the things that are being brought down as well are getting even more, as well as scarves, the shirts. And we've seen some pictures and signed pictures as well. People just so keen to come down and share in the emotion of the evening. More memories to come shortly. Time now to get some more of Sir Alex Ferguson's tribute to George. He's been speaking to Mandy.
He was a lovely man. He was actually quite a shy lad, really. And you can see he was vulnerable to all the excesses of life, in the sense of he was quiet and shy, and therefore you could see maybe he could be exploited. You know, you can understand how his life was in that respect. But mannerly, intelligent, and I remember one of the lads, I can't remember which player it was, maybe Dennis or Bobby, told me that he was an avid crossword reader. You know, he did crosswords all the time. He was very good at them. So he had a good intelligence and a thoroughly mannerly lad, you know.
He said himself he wanted to be remembered for his football, but I guess United fans are sure to do that anyway.
Oh, absolutely, and that's exactly what it should be. I must say that. For us, that we're all vulnerable, we're all have weaknesses of different types, for different kinds, but none of us are perfect. Well, he was perfect in the football pitch. His production of skill and artistry and the ability to beat men and score goals. I remember someone said to me that he didn't quite fulfil his potential at Manchester United because he finished at 26 and his best years were lost to him. But then you look at his record, 486 games, 189 goals. You know, some of the greatest players in our country don't even match that, don't come anywhere near that. And he haven't missed a game. He played with injuries. You see his stockings flaying around about his ankles, getting kicked to shreds with guys like Ron Harris, Norman Hunter, Tommy Smith, because these were serious guys, by the way. But always took the ball. After he was fouled, he got up, give me the ball. That was unbelievable for a young lad like that.
Finally, I guess it's ironic that he made his debut against West Brom, the first home game after his death, West Brom.
I know. It's amazing how these ironies creep up in us with but I think the most poignant part of it on Sunday will be that everyone in the country is going to recognise him with a minute's silence. I think that's wonderful. I think that he deserves it, and so does the game.
And a reminder, at Old Trafford tomorrow, the Book of Condolences is open from 10 o'clock. And as the manager's saying there, the Carling Cup fixture with West Brom, ironically enough, next Wednesday, another chance where the club will pay tribute. He's talking there about his strength. He said there were some serious characters.
Well, we laughed, Alex, now, and he says, well, serious, Tommy Smith and Norman Hunter. Serious? I would hate some of the players today in the Premier League to play against those two lads. What would they do?
They wouldn't. They wouldn't.
They wouldn't turn up, would they?
No, they wouldn't.
They wouldn't. They'd take one look at the two Thomas.
But they would only play one game.
Oh,
in the season.
Yeah,
no, but I'm talking about those players only play one game in the season. They'd be off. They'd be banned.
Tom, I'm interested to know, because he put in one of his books that he felt more confident taking on these people with you in the team. You were always there to protect him. 2 minutes later, if someone had tackled him, you were over sorting them out.
No, I wasn't. I wasn't like that.
Now, come on, Paddy. Now, just speak the truth. Speak the truth.
In all seriousness, Paddy, was that something that...
that was...
Were you, as a teammate and a friend, upset at some of the treatment he got?
Yeah, you'd be upset. I think George had to live with the fact that he was going to get that treatment because he was such a wonderful player. The only way you could stop him was by kicking him. And you knew that every game George played, somebody was going to kick him. You could threaten people. You could threaten people by saying, well, if you kick him, I'm going to kick you, because George didn't kick anybody. No. That would be the way it would go on. If you touch him again, I'm going to sort you out. But that would go on in the game.
And it got to a stage where some managers, opposing managers, were forgetting their own game plan and just telling their players to try and stop George Best.
Well, that's right. I mean, the thing was, I mean, Leeds was a prime example, Paddy. I mean, we used to hear it from the touchline and everything, you know. I mean, well, I didn't, but I mean, the lads told me about it. But that's a Shankly story, wasn't it? That was the Shankly story.
Yeah,
that was where he, in his team talk.
Through the team.
He went through the team. He's useless. Like Stepney, he's useless. Claren, he's useless. And Stiles, he's useless. And
he never mentioned Charlton Best and Law.
He never mentioned Charlton Best and Law. And he said, if you can't beat three of them,
a great tale, that, isn't it?
Great fella, Bill Shanks as well.
Yeah. He would have appreciated talent like that.
Oh, loved him. Loved him. Loved him.
But I mean, look at this pitch now. I mean, you see.
Watch where he goes now for the tournament. I'm getting that.
Look.
But that's bravery.
Yeah.
That is exactly.
There's 3 or 4 defenders. They're all going to. In those days, they're going to clatter you. Bump the skill in his chest.
And that ball. I mean, that ball is not like the ball.
Can you imagine if he'd have let that ball drop at his feet? There'd have been. He'd have been bits of them flying all over the place. Yeah. But the quickness and pace to take it to his chest.
Let me let the viewers share some memories. Karen in Manchester. Hi, Karen.
Good evening, everybody.
Hi, Karen.
Hi. Thanks for giving me the chance to express my heartfelt sympathies to the family and friends of George. I'd just simply like to say that George was an artist, the pitch was his canvas, and every game was a masterpiece.
Bloody William Shakespeare, Karen.
Nicely put,
fantastic,
Karen.
That. Yeah, fantastic. Brilliant. It couldn't have been put better.
Absolutely. Thank you, Karen. Bristol, Rob is next. Hi, Rob. Hi, Rob.
Hello, Steve. Hello, Paddy.
Hi,
Hello,
Rob.
Alex.
Hi, Rob.
Sad day today. I grew up as a teenager in Bristol, and I'm in my 50s now, but Georgie was my idol. Wonderful control, devastating, he had everything. I've never seen anybody, and Paddy and Alex are top-class players. There you are, Steve. Alex, top-class right half. I saw him play. When George got to a defender, I've never seen anybody beat somebody so close up. When you got face-on to a defender, he was past him. Matthews took 10 yards to go, that bodies were, but Best would just go by them immediately. Fantastic player. I think Matt Busby was asked once, great Matt Busby, who obviously you worked with, and he was asked who were the 2 greatest talents that he'd ever worked with. Matt, as you probably know, was a bit reticent, but I think he came out with the great Duncan Edwards and the incomparable George Best, as he put it, during this quote. But it's a very sad day, and sympathy to all his family, because the man was an absolute genius.
Do you know the great thing about it, Rob, along the way? I mean, managers have great respect for great players as well. You know, they can have an appreciation of great players. You always think sometimes the manager's got this tactical thing and his mind's swayed by this and that, but he can still admire great players. Even if they're playing against you, you can admire them.
OK, Rob, thank you very much indeed. And a quick text as well from John says, hi guys, not a lot to say about George that's not already been said, except that not actually meeting him, I feel I've still lost a friend.
Yes, I mean, and I think that goes from many, many people around the world, you know, and around this country, because, you know, everybody talks about him. Don't matter what, and when we're talking about supporters of other teams, they, you know, I remember I've spoke to many different supporters, Spurs supporters. I remember when you came down to White Hart Lane, George Best was fantastic. You know, they'd seen him. And that's how they go.
But you know the great thing, Alex, about football supporters, if you're a football supporter of a particular football club, like a Manchester United supporter, You might not have seen the Busby Babes or seen the Johnny Carey team of the 48s, but you'll know all about them because you'll have read about them. Your parents, your father, your grandfather, it'll be part of the folklore and the history that's brought down from father to son all the way down, and you'd know about all these great players, and that's how.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to say, Paddy, is the fact that wherever Manchester United played away from home, it was their biggest game at that club.
Yes.
And that's why that's why it was always full houses, because they wanted, and we saw it. They were all there to see George Best. When we pulled up at the grounds...
I can remember nowadays so vividly, because in those days there was no such thing really, unless it was a cup tie, as an all-ticket match.
Right.
So you'd go to a London club, White Hart Lane or Arsenal or Chelsea, and the ground would be full. The ground would be full at 1:30. The gates would be shut at 1:30. Can you believe that?
Incredible.
1:30 because there was no tickets, so people had to get in. They would go to the games that early. It was incredible.
Okay. More tributes, more memories to come on this special tribute show in a couple of moments' time.
Tommy Taylor's header.
The European Cup.
The cup they wanted was the European Cup. 100,000 expectant fans packed the stands to see great football. Bobby Charlton and Kelowna exchanged Manchester United and Benfica pennants. The moment of truth in the battle for mastery of European soccer had arrived. United, playing in blue, kicked off. United launched directly into attack. Bobby Charlton took the ball into Benfica territory. Dangerous moments as the Portuguese defence tried to clear. That mighty danger man Eusebio sent in a scorcher. It ricocheted off the crossbar. What an escape! Stepney, unrattled, collected the return effort and got United moving. George Best fell foul of the first of a series of savage tackles which marred the first half. Benfica with the dangerous free kick. But what a great keeper Stepney proved himself. It was near the end of an unglamorous first half. No score by either side. With the eyes of the world on both teams and the hopes of every Briton behind United, the second half got underway. The Busby boys seemed fired with a new enthusiasm and stormed into the attack. George Best was in terrific form, but so was Henrique. Benfica weren't going to let United run away with the match. They too showed they meant business. Hard-working Best put the ball out to the left, where Sadler had been playing like a demon. The return centre was a beauty. Charlton headed it home. The match was by no means won. Benfica pulled off a beauty through Grassa. Stepney was a wonder goalkeeper to stop that rocket from the big cannon boot of Eusebio. Stepney collected and fed his forwards. Waiting to receive was mighty Best. He simply walked the ball into the net. What a goal! United in the lead. And that wasn't all. The Busby Babes were raring to go. They hammered Benfica. Watch this fantastic goal. Bobby Charlton made it 4-1. Manchester United had well and truly done it. They were supreme soccer champions of Europe. At last, Matt Busby, the maestro of Manchester United, had groomed a team great enough to beat Europe's best. He was king of soccer. His wonderful 11 men were all princes.
Fantastic memories. I know you two don't tire of looking at that, but when people mention George Best, a lot of people, first of all, go to that night, don't they?
Yeah, they do. And, you know, I've got to say, I'm sure Paddy will agree with me, that, you know, after 90 minutes, both teams were absolutely drained. Absolutely drained. It was 90-odd degrees in the stadium. We ran our socks off, and you now know you've got to go and do an extra time. And you needed someone special. You needed someone special with a bit more, just that 10% more that could do something. I mean, I got the ball, Shea Brennan passed it back to me, and I'm looking for, I mean, normally he was always looking up to the ball, weren't you?
Yeah.
But it was absolutely shattered. And all I could do was, I've got to kick it. And I kicked it, and because Brian nodded it on, and Bestie got some pace from somewhere. He got that, and he ran on. He beat Kaluna, and then he took the keeper on and went round him. Fitness level.
Strange enough, he hadn't done a great deal in the game up till then, George.
He had a good kicking in the first half.
Oh, yeah, he kicked lumps out of, I know that, but that maybe. But
then
I say it often. I say it often when we do commentaries. Manchester United have got players with a little bit of magic that can turn a game and do something. He had it. I know obviously Dennis didn't play that night. We had Bob, but he had it in abundance. He had it in abundance. He knew if somewhere along the way he'll do something. And he did.
Okay, well, appreciate your time. But just before we leave you on this special programme, how will you remember George Best? What would be your abiding memory of George Best, Al?
Oh, actually, as far as I can say, Steve, it was such a privilege, and I was very honoured to play with that man. And you know, I can't say any more. He was just the greatest I've ever seen.
Paddy?
He was a great lad, and full of life and all the things that you'd love. And he's an Irishman, and I think people should celebrate his life. I'm sure in Northern Ireland they'll celebrate his life rather than be sad about it.
Great stuff. Thank you very much indeed for your company. You've been watching a special tribute to George Best. MUTV will be paying tributes for the rest of the evening. A lot has been said and written about George, but to Manchester United fans, he'll be remembered as one of the greatest players to wear the red shirt. The Belfast boy brought joy and a sense of wonder in his 11 seasons here at Old Trafford. He is a true Manchester United legend and will never, ever be forgotten. Our thoughts are with George and his family. We'll leave you tonight with the thoughts of his teammates and the fans.
George wanted to be remembered as one of the greatest players of all time, and he absolutely was, as Pele said, perhaps the greatest footballer of all time.
Oh, without certainly in the top sort of 6 players in the world that has been, you know, you think of Maradona and you think of Di Stefano and Puskas in my day. So there's been many great players, but Bestie was definitely up there with the best. Bit frustrating at times to play with. You know, we get into a position and where I think, will he get the ball? And he wouldn't give me it. And then his father was talking last night regarding that with Bobby, when Bobby was in a good position and Bessie didn't give him a ball. And of course, Bobby said to him, well, you know, why didn't you give me the ball, Bestie? He said, well, I knew you were offside, so so that was, he got out of it that way. So, but he'll be remembered for all his magnificent ability that he had. He was definitely one on his own. Scored great goals, was brave, wasn't very big, was quite good in the air really for, you know, because he wasn't that tall really. He had a bit of everything, and he had a bit of fight in him as well, which was, I think, if you want to be up there, you've got to have a bit of that. Apart from ability, you've got to have a bit of that as well, and he had all that. And it just shows you, you know, he's fought this last 2 months really, it's been, and he's just fought, because when we went down before, the professor said his heart is really strong, and that's a tragedy really, in that all the other organs are failing, and yet he's got this big heart that just keeps pumping away there, and this is why he lasted so long in intensive care, where as normal, if it happened to somebody else, it would have been finished, you know, 2 or 3 weeks ago.
We've been hearing stories from various people who've played with him, against him, and fans throughout the day. If you were to sum up your feelings, your relationship with him in one memory, how would you do it?
It was very difficult, that, because there were so many through the years. Probably the best game that we played as a team and as a whole, and I think this is when Bestie became sort of that super idol, was when we beat Benfica in Lisbon, when we beat them 5-1. Unfortunately, we got beat in the semi-final, but that was to me, that was the start. That was the best United ever played, and that was where he came on his own, and of course, he was a superstar after that.
George gave something to the world of football that nobody else has ever done, and he will be sorely missed. A lot of people all over the world can be thankful for him. He had an ability, he had an unbelievable talent. He didn't fear anything. He wasn't afraid to go into the tackle. He was never afraid to try. He was very inventive. You know, all different things of him chipping the ball over the goalkeeper or putting it through someone's legs or whatever. It was always something that was very theatrical, and the fans always loved it. He was a marvelous little player, really.
George Best holds a totally unique place in the history of football, and in particular his beloved Manchester United. He was, without any doubt, one of the finest players the United Kingdom has ever produced, and in the opinion of many observers, the greatest of them all. Despite the inevitability of George's plight, there's still a huge feeling of shock and disbelief at Old Trafford, in Manchester, Belfast and beyond. It remains difficult to absorb what has happened.
I think that when he came on the scene, I think he carried every young person's dreams in the 60s. It was the time of freedom, of expression, and it was an era that was come out of wartime, you know, from the end of the war, and there was a liberation of young people in those days, and I think George carried their dreams, the way he played, the way he performed in the football stage, and he was just quite a phenomenal player. My most vivid memory of him was playing against Scotland at Windsor Park, and he was against a very talented attacking fullback for Scotland, Tommy Gemmell, and he gave him the mother and the fathers of a doing. It was just incredible. The Scots people were saying, God almighty, what is this?
He was always very friendly, very approachable, even when he was a superstar. He was never an extrovert. He never wanted to sort of dominate the stage and say, hey, look at me. And I like that about him as a person, and then of course as a player. He was just so special to watch, so exciting. So, you know, we talk about players who get you on the edge of your seat. Well, he did that right through a match, not just moments, but right through a match.
I think the two biggest things about George that difficult for fans, especially the younger ones who are watching these clips now, to realise was bravery, unbelievable bravery on the pitch. I mean, there was players like Tommy Smith, Chopper Harris. George wasn't bothered about those players. He went by them and he would go by them again, time and time again. But the biggest thing of all, I think, and I hope David will agree, he was a good guy, he was a nice fella. He was a superstar.
Yeah, he was.
But he was a nice fella, autographs for the kids, autographs for the fans, half an hour, it didn't matter.
As a footballer, he was just simply outstanding. He could do everything. Certainly for pound, he was the toughest and the best header of the ball in the club. You know, and I mean, he trained so hard and so naturally. It was just easy for him. It was just, and it was just a joy for him. That's all he wanted to do, was to get out there and train and play football.
People got to look back on him, forget what he's done after his football, remember him for his football, because, I mean, he turned this place from nothing to superstardom. You know, if he lived today, he won't be able to pay his wages. You know, he did it with a ball that weighed half a ton.
Coming down here, standing on the Warwick Road in here in the Stretford and shout his name at 12:30 in the afternoon, you know, just, it fills you with pride that you was part of it. He was an absolute genius.
I remember seeing George in the early 60s, and he just hit me like a thunderbolt watching him play. And that was one of the main reasons I went to Old Trafford, was just to watch him. You had great players like Charlton and Lord and other players like that, but he was the one.
He's the best that's ever lived. I mean, we've just had Pelé on the television before I left home. Even Pelé says it. Pelé told him he's the best. You know, so it's there. There won't be another one.
I tripped. Twice.
Have a bad poker face? Then PartyPoker.net is for
Trickling out space. What a bad shot. Georgie Best. The ball from Best. And a great goal. Still with Best. Anyone go? And a goal. This looks better. George Best. Sold 2 dummies and now has made a chance for himself. His hat-trick!
One of the finest players to ever wear the red shirt has today passed away at the Cromwell Hospital in London, aged 59. George Best had been fighting serious lung and liver infections in recent weeks, a battle he's now sadly lost. Our thoughts are all with George's family. This is how the announcement was made this lunchtime at the Cromwell Hospital in West London by his family and friends.
At 1 o'clock today, my father has passed away. Not only have I lost my dad, but we've all lost a wonderful man. And I'd just like to take the time to thank Professor Williams and Dr. Gill and everybody here at the Cromwell Hospital for doing everything they can do, and all the well-wishers and the fans and the letters and the flowers and the emails. It all means so much to all of us, and that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Dickie, would you like to say
excuse me.
Sorry.
Excuse me. This is a statement on behalf of the family, and we would prefer at this stage not to take questions. As you can imagine, this is a very difficult time, so you will understand if we're a bit emotional. First of all, I would like to say on behalf of the family a huge thank you to everyone who has supported George and us through this traumatic time. In particular to Professor Williams and to Gill, who have become firm friends as well as medical advisors to George. To the rest of the medical staff, in particular from the ICU, who have offered the most overwhelming support, especially over the past 24 hours. Words cannot describe the lengths to which they have gone to make this easy for the family. To the thousands upon thousands of people who have sent cards and emails, we have taken great comfort from them, especially during the long hours. And finally, I would like to say a very special thank you to Phil Hughes, who over the past at least 25 years has been to George nothing but a firm friend. Thank you.
Well, I would like to say something now to you people, and I hope you listen and follow what I am going to ask you to do. Now we've made a statement to you. Would you please all go away and leave us to grieve in peace? That's a very human thing to ask anyone to do.
Thank you.
Dennis, any words?
Well, it's an extremely sad day for the Best family, and for the father and the son and his sisters and his brother, and of course, as Callum mentioned, Phil Hughes here, who has done a marvellous job. And I think it was just a matter of time, really. It was not if, it was when that things wouldn't go right. And I think in the long run, after knowing him for such a long time, I think it's the best thing that's happened to him, because he would have been slightly like a vegetable, and he wouldn't have liked that. So in a way, it's awful to say sometimes, but it was a blessing, I think.
He enjoyed his life, though, didn't he?
He certainly did, yes. We won't go into that too far.
And Phil, you went from the kind of friends.
He's gone somewhere now where no one can hurt him anymore. He's safe now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, in the next hour, we'll be paying tribute to one of the world's greatest ever footballers, a Belfast boy who brought joy and a sense of wonder in his 11 seasons here at Old Trafford, a footballing genius and European Footballer of the Year. In the studio with me, not only two of his teammates, who won the European Cup with him, of course, in 1968, but two of his closest friends as well. Difficult day for everybody. Thank you both for coming in. But it's important, Pat, that we remember great memories when you mention the name George Best.
Well, this programme's going to be a bit light-hearted and a bit emotional as well when you think of George. But when I look round the stadium here and think George helped to build this stadium, I mean, it was players like George, and there wasn't many like him, that built this place. This is why this place is here, because we had people like that playing for us. That's the reason why.
And as far as Manchester United's concerned, their history, Al, the way they play football, that's down more to George than anybody else, isn't it?
Well, I suppose, like, you know, you go back to the 50s and the Busby Babes, and we lost so many then, but Matt never changed anything. He brought this kid in, he brought the young kids through. He didn't buy many players, They're all coming through, and with flair, and George stood out like no one else, really. You know, he was absolutely fantastic.
We've got a lot of tributes tonight. Before we get into them, I'm interested to hear your first memories, because you, Pat, joined in February '63, before George had actually played for the first team. Can you remember when you first met him and first saw him?
I remember coming and watching him in training, and I thought, that kid's got a chance. And then I saw him playing in a youth match. I just couldn't believe it. I thought, I can't believe that kid can do that. And I spoke to Jack Crompton, who was the trainer of the club at that particular time. I says, Jack, what about that kid Best? And Jack looked at me and just smiled and says, yeah, we're keeping him under wraps. We're not mentioning him to anybody. I says, oh, I would just think maybe you didn't realise what was there. He just laughed and he says, of course we know what's there. He was just incredible. I mean, we were talking earlier about different things that George done on the pitch. I actually played in a little practice match when he took the mickey out of Harry Gregg. Now, Harry Gregg wasn't a person. He certainly wasn't a person who took the mickey out of Harry. Harry took the game so great fella, but took the game very serious. George dummied him and sent him the wrong way. And Harry wasn't impressed at all. George done it again. Fucking Harry chased after him. But Harry was a great admirer of him, of course.
And on the other side of the coin, when you signed for Manchester United, he was already here. He'd already had his great night in Lisbon as well, and he was capitulated into the public eye. And I believe when Sir Matt met you, he was the one player he mentioned to you.
Yeah, well, what happened actually, Steve, was when I met Sir Matt and Jimmy Murphy, they came down to London to sign me at the White House Hotel near Euston Station. And it was quite funny because, I mean, Tommy Docherty was manager, I was at Chelsea. Tommy went with Matt into one room, and Jimmy Murphy took me into another room while they sorted out the deal, what was going on. And all Jimmy would say to me, all he could say was, you come to Manchester United, you know you're going to be playing with a genius.
Thanks, Alex.
No, not you, Pat. You're going to be playing with George Best. You have never seen anything like it. What you've seen on television when he's been playing before, when you go and you train with him every day and work with him, you won't believe it. And because the deal went through, the next day I'm travelling up on the train with just Jimmy and Matt, you know, back to Manchester to do the signing. They never stopped talking for 2 hours 40 minutes about George Best and what this team was going to do and what he was going to do for the team. And what a great team we had as well. But it was all about George.
Absolutely. Well, between now and 7:30, we'll look back. We'll hear a lot of tributes as well, and we'll show you, because if you haven't seen him live like myself, there's lots of good footage around just how good a player George Best was. But let's begin the tributes this evening with the United manager, Sir Alex Ferguson.
When we got the news, I think it was something that was expected. We spoke about it this morning, but it's still that suddenness and the taking away of something. You know, it's felt by everyone at the club, because without question he was an incredibly gifted and talented and courageous player for Manchester United. And I think that when he came on the scene, I think he carried every young person's dreams in the 60s. It was the time of freedom, of expression, and it was an era. It was come out of wartime, you know, from the end of the war, and there was a liberation of young people in those days. And I think George carried their dreams, the way he played, the way he performed in the football stage, and he was just quite a phenomenal player. My most vivid memory of him was playing against Scotland at Windsor Park. And he was against a very talented attacking fullback for Scotland, Tommy Gill. And he gave him the mother and the fathers of a do, and it was just incredible. The Scots people were saying, God almighty, what is this? And the thing I think that flummoxed Tommy Gill that day was he kept tackling Tommy, because he was such a brave player. He was a great tackler. He could do almost everything. And it's very, very sad. And to his family, I think we all pass on the deepest, deepest sympathy from everyone at Manchester United.
How would you sum up the impact that he had on Manchester United and on football as a whole?
Well, his pivotal moment won us a cup, if we go back to that performance when we beat Madrid and beat Benfica. And I think these were the pivotal moments where it takes a team from being a really good team into the greatness. You know, and of course the cup final when they scored the second goal, we beat the goalkeeper, rounded the goalkeeper and placed it in the net. These are moments which were the epoch of the game. It was the top games, Benfica, Manchester United, Real Madrid and Manchester United, Manchester United and Benfica in the final. And he produced performances which were breathtaking. And single-handedly, he won his games. So I think that is the impact he made in Manchester United. And of course, with Dennis Law and with Bobby Charlton, with Nobby Stiles. But I think that they would agree that he was a player that took him into something else. He raised the bar to a level of skill and artistry and courage that even they couldn't quite believe that a young player could do this.
Do you think we'll ever see a player like George Best again?
Well, we hope so. We pray and hope so, because that player makes everyone's life happier. It makes you believe in football and makes you believe in that the talent of football field can produce, that artistry and courage. And it may not happen. And so we'll have to live with the memory of George Best and the black and white film we produce now and again to remind us of all that. But we certainly hope Manchester United can do it. It's a forlorn hope maybe, but I think all the fans would love to see it.
Well, these are the live pictures now outside of Old Trafford. Sir Alex Ferguson there talking about the world icon that was George Best. And anyone who's been in and around Old Trafford today, it's been an unbelievable response by United fans. And I have to point out as well, football fans, because I've been out there and I've seen Manchester City shirts, I've seen Everton shirts, I've seen Blackburn shirts. Just general football fans have come to pay homage. And obviously shirts, T-shirts, flowers, paintings, posters, they're all there. And there's still people as they finish work on this Friday evening coming down to Old Trafford to pay tribute to George Best. And just to let you know as well, it's been announced in the last couple of moments that George Best's funeral will take place on Friday in Belfast. That is a week today in Belfast. So we just heard from Sir Alex Ferguson. Earlier on, Sir Bobby Charlton gave us his reaction to the very sad news. Bobby Charlton in a couple of moments' time. Those pictures, though, boys, they just show you...
Can I just interrupt for a second, Steve? I don't usually interrupt you, do you? But the manager was talking about the game Scotland v Northern Ireland and
Sorry,
Belfast.
yes, I was going to ask you about that.
Well, let me tell you something. It finished up 1-0. I think.
Playing?
No.
No.
It finished up, thank God I wasn't playing. George was absolutely incredible. He tore poor Tommy Gemmell apart. Honest to God, tore him apart. And at half-time, Eddie McCready was the other full-back. And Tommy says to Eddie, "You wouldn't mind swapping with me?" Eddie went, "You can off. I'm not going nowhere near him." He absolutely tore Scotland apart.
And was that the year that Scotland had beaten England as well? I think
Scotland always beat England in those days, so they must have. They used to always beat them in those days.
But have another glass of wine.
Well, that's the closest we're going to get to it. But it was incredible that day.
Fantastic. We'll talk again in a moment, but let's get the reaction of Sir Bobby Charlton.
George gave something to the world of football that nobody else has ever done, and he will be sorely missed. A lot of people all over the world can be thankful for him. I think particularly Manchester, though. I think they saw more of George and got more idea of why he had become what he'd become, and I think they're very lucky that Manchester that actually George played here.
Legend is a word that's used quite a lot in football, but this is a word that's particularly prevalent for George Best.
Well, yes, he had an ability, he had an unbelievable talent. He didn't fear anything. He wasn't afraid to go into the tackle. He was never afraid to try. He was very inventive. You know, all different things of him chipping the ball over the goalkeeper or putting it through someone's legs or whatever. It was always something that was very theatrical. And the fans always loved it. He was a marvelous little player, really. And I'm sorry that it's been a long time, but he's died, and unfortunately, you know, that has to be accepted. But at the same time, he leaves an unbelievable legacy for young people, and I think that he'll be remembered for a very, very long time in Manchester.
Absolutely. As a footballer, he brought a lot to the game, but I can imagine if you played with him, he could have been frustrating for the likes of you and your teammates at times.
Yes, he was frustrating. At the end of the day, though, he'd make you eat your words by doing something extraordinary. and you have to just accept, you know, that this was somebody that really was a single-minded person and who knew what he was doing, and we just had to go along with it, I'm afraid. But it was a great journey and a great ride for all of us that played with George Best. I feel particularly proud. When anybody mentions Bestlaw Charlton, I feel very proud about that, and I'm sorry that we're not all together anymore. But he was just somebody that can do things that every parent who took a child along to a football match and they would say, this is what you have to try to achieve, you know, when it was impossible for them. He was a unique talent.
A lot of memories of George Best, but what would be the one that stands out for you particularly, Sir Bobby?
Well, I think the game in Lisbon, when we were 1-0 up from the first leg, and we went to Lisbon not expecting to get anything really, and we were all preparing ourselves for what was going to be a really tough game, and George took the game by the scruff of the neck almost immediately, and within a very short time he'd won the game for us. And the Portuguese were absolutely gutted. They were just with his pace and his daring, and he was never afraid to try his shots from difficult angles. And that particular night I'll always remember, because I mean, if anybody would say the score was going to be 5, most people would think, well, it must be for the home team. But that was the best match I ever saw him play. He was absolutely like greased lightning, and it was a marvellous match. I'll always think of that whenever I think of George. I'll see him just running through and slotting the ball past the goalkeeper as though he did it every minute of the day.
The tributes have been coming in, obviously. Pelly once described George Best as the greatest player ever. That's some tribute.
Well, Pelly would know. He was a fantastic player himself. George certainly could do things that no other people could ever do or even think about. He just had this invention. He was innovative. He was never afraid to try things, and if he failed, it didn't matter. It didn't worry him, and he was absolutely magic. I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry that he's not with us anymore. But in Manchester, we're very lucky. I mean, anybody that played with him would consider it a privilege. I was a privilege to play with someone with such immense talent, and anybody that played with him must feel a little bit of something today.
And finally, Sir Bobby, what is his lasting tribute to Manchester United? What did he bring to Manchester United?
Well, Manchester United, historically, you know, has made itself one of the great names in world soccer of any football team, and of course, you don't get that reputation unless you have people like George Best, and George Best probably helped more than anybody else to actually make Manchester United what it was, because there was a period when he was at his prime that there was so much pleasure and that went out from George Best that he'll always be remembered. Always, he was just pure magic on the ball.
So Bobby Charlton paying his tributes to George Best today. He talked about a lot of things there. Let me take you back there. We mentioned how you joined in February of '63 to September '63. David Sadler was with me earlier on. He scored the only goal of that game, George's debut. The first time you'd ever seen George in a competitive game.
That was against West Bromwich Albion. Yeah, funny enough, he phoned me today, Graham, while he was in. It's not the first time he's phoned me obviously.
Who's Graham Williams?
Played left back for West Brom, sorry. He was a captain to the Welsh side as well. He was phoning occasionally to find out how George was, and he phoned me again today, and lovely lad he was. But he was one of these Alex played against him as well. He never took a prisoner in his life, Graham. Never took a prisoner in his life. And we were in Mallorca on holiday that summer, because that was the in place for everybody in those days. You used to go with your wives and so on and all that sort of thing. George was always there. Plaza Gamila one night was the centre of Palma, because there was nothing else outside Palma. And I met Graham, and we're sitting down and all that sort of, and Georgie was there as well. Georgie all of a sudden appeared, and I says to Graham, do you know George? He says, no, I don't, but it's all over, so always he's back. You know, which for Graham, and Graham was a tremendous footballer.
He was the Wales captain, wasn't he?
He was tremendous. We always saw his back. He was by me that often. And that was great praise indeed from someone that, if you're taking the mickey out of him, he's going to kick you. But Graham said he couldn't get near him to kick him, but high praise indeed.
And 3 months later, you beat Burnley 5-1 in that season. That was the first of 178 goals that he scored for this club.
Believe me, 2 days previous to that, we lost 6-1. Alex wasn't in goal. We lost 6-1, so that was the day before Christmas Day, and we played him again Boxing Day here at Old Trafford. And that's when Matt sent a telegram for George to come back to Manchester, which he did over. He was at home with his family. Christmas festivities, finished up playing the following day. We were absolutely brilliant. George was brilliant. Alec Elder, Northern Ireland International, was playing left back. George absolutely destroyed him. Absolutely destroyed him. And from then on, George was away and flying.
Now you two, the 2 league championships that George won, 65 and 67, Alex, you clinched the championship in 67. Where?
West Ham. 6-1, fun enough, Paddy. Same score.
Yeah.
Paddy scored, did he not?
I think you scored a goal that game, Paddy. For a change.
A header. Believe it.
Well,
Alex,
is that not a little fateful that obviously 2 days after his death, United then go to Upton Park and play West Ham?
Isn't it? I mean, you know, if any United players, present team are watching, and just go and win 6-1 for George on Sunday would be fantastic, wouldn't it? And ironically, who's our next European game against?
Benfica. No, it was funny as well about that game, the 6-1 game as well, because if you remember, Alex, Matt was a little bit late coming out, and when he came out, we'd scored. We scored from the first, straight from the, and he missed the goal, and he saw the kick-off. And we scored again, which meant it was 3-0 at half-time, and at 2-0, Matt was still a bit apprehensive about playing it tight and all that. Well, look, it's 3-0, what are you talking about? He didn't realise we had scored.
I think it's important tonight as well for some of our younger viewers who won't have had the chance to see him live in action, just to remind people of the unbelievable talent that he was. And as people have been saying, Al, he scored all types of goals, didn't he?
Many players around him there, but he's 6.
He scored right foot, left foot, he headed goals. I mean, OK, and that is what you're seeing there, that is on a good pitch. But you look at some of these
pitches,
replays, the pitches are unbelievable. And he had so much skill on every kind of pitch, didn't he, Paddy?
Well, terrible pitches there were in those days. I mean, but he did. He was an incredible player that could play anywhere. I mean, when he was brought up in Belfast, I'm sure some of the pitches he played on in Belfast for his little teams would be probably worse than what even the Premier League or the First Division leagues would have been in those days.
That's something when I first met him, and we, you know, like you train and you see him stripped.
Nothing of him.
Nothing of him, but his thighs, Paddy.
Big legs.
His thighs were unbelievable.
Yeah.
Solid, you know, big, compared with the rest of his body. And when you look at some of these replays now, you know, and the tackles that go in against him.
Now, here's one here now, Alex.
Watch. Look.
Now, you tell me a player in the Premier League today that wouldn't go down when that challenge was made.
But there's balance, that's incredible.
I saw it today on MUTV. Do you go down?
Yeah.
He didn't. I saw Ron Harris just.
Oh, I saw that.
You'd have gone, any player today would have gone down screaming blue murder, particularly the foreign players. They'd have been looking for the surgeon and the doctor and everything, but he didn't.
And sending off as well.
Because. I mean, if you remember when we played with him as well, we used to get angry with him at times because there were situations when he didn't go down, he didn't score. But if he goes down, it's a penalty. Yeah. But he would just adamant.
Was that the type of person he was? You're saying you're angry. That was George.
He didn't think of anything else but trying to score a goal.
What about Bobby Moore here? He was one of the great players in the game. There you are, Bobby. Where are you now? And Bobby Moore was one of the great players in the game. Just incredible.
And you never tire of seeing these either, really.
No, but you know the one thing about... I mean, I relate it a great deal to Sir Alex's time at Old Trafford with David Beckham and Ryan Giggs. The work rate they put in, incredible. He was the exact same. If I've said it once, I've said it a million times. If he was playing in front of Shea Brennan or in front of Tony Dunn, both full-backs, you had to beat George to take the defender on. You had to go past him first. He might have been up the other end or tie. He was the first line of defence.
That's right. I tell you what I didn't like. I tell you what, talking about training, if I didn't want to be in the reserve team because in training I'll be facing him.
It kept everyone on their toes.
That's right.
Oh God, what a loss!
I mean, look at this pitch.
Look at exactly. Look at the pitch. You're doing.
I mean, look at the score of that pass.
Who was that number 4?
I just think if we see the last goal in this game, I don't know if you're going to show it. Kim Book, when he just shakes
We're
his
going to
head
play it later on in full.
Yeah, and he goes.
But I mean, this was after he'd been banned for 6 weeks.
He hadn't played,
He
yeah.
came back and he said, right, to the Football League, 6 goals.
Brilliant. Absolutely. Okay, we'll have that game in full a little bit later on as part of our special tribute. There will be a minute's silence before every Premiership match this weekend following George's death. And just a reminder, in case you're coming in, you are watching MUTV's special tribute programme after the sad news that Manchester United legend George Best has lost his final battle. Countdown to kick-off will be broadcast instead tomorrow at 6 o'clock. And I know many of you would like to pay your tributes. We've had lots coming in as well to the footballing genius George Best. Please get in touch, 0845 602 6899. Email mutv@mutv.com, or you can text us MUTV Talk to 86025, and all proceeds today from this will go to charity.